Welcome to the NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. I'm Sam Holcroft alongside Payton Thompson and Sean Rink. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. So today we're going to talk about some Christmas wish lists. We're going to go through about 13 teams and say the number one thing that is on their Christmas wish list this year. But as per usual, we're going to start with the recaps from last year. Major change in the standings here. I am back on top with 172 points on a 142 and 82 record. I went 13 and 3 this last week, with the Falcons, Cowboys, and Eagles being my only losses. Zeke went down to second with 169 points with a 139 and 85 record, and he went 10 and 6. I got my upset and double downs. He got only his double down. Sean is still in third with 167 points with a 141 and 83 record, going also 10 and 6 this last week, but getting the upset and double down. And Payton is in last with 160 points, a 135 and 89 record, and Payton went 12 and 4, also getting upset and double down. And moving on to the Overreaction Monday statements, I'll go first since I have the most points. Baker Mayfield is indeed a franchise quarterback. So, overreaction or not, everyone was expecting Baker to, maybe not even be on the team by this point. You got to keep in mind, this point last year, he was on his second team of the year, and that was with the LA Rams. He started off the season with the Carolina Panthers and was also with the Browns in the offseason. So, in the span of 6 months, he was on 3 different teams. And none of those teams wanted him. The Rams had an opportunity to sign him, but he said, nah, I'm going to go elsewhere. In fact, we were even talking, I might have been the only one, but I kind of thought Kyle Trask might have been the guy that would have been the starting quarterback this year for the Buccaneers. And Baker has been proving this year that he should be a franchise quarterback still. There was a lot of question marks the last 2 years, but he's finally hitting a groove. The Buccaneers are on top of that division. It's a close race right now, but if they win their next 3 games, there's a good chance that maybe, they just build around Baker and this offense.
You want to take this
PT's
first?
reaction with his eyes gave everything you needed to know, and you probably missed it. That is quite the take, and I really don't know how to respond to that, besides the fact that I think the only reason that even becomes a conversation is simply because I feel like the quarterback talent in 50% of the league is drastically lower than it has been in previous years. And the only reason that Baker looks like he's even in the conversation as a franchise quarterback. Granted, his stats this year are better than what I have expected, but that's quite a bold statement.
So before I kind of rip into this, I got to ask you, Sam, when you are talking about a franchise quarterback in this kind of context, what exactly does that entail?
A quarterback for the foreseeable future.
Well, when you put it like that, I think I could be 50-50 on it, because I don't really think that their quarterback situation is going to get much better. At least not within the next couple of years. But I don't think he's the type of guy that you want to build around, because I think that's kind of the wrong approach with a guy like Baker. I mean, he can be very serviceable. I mean, if he was like on the Falcons, I think the Falcons are 8-win team right now. But he's going to have to be the type of guy that you put him in an offense that's already built around, not around him, but just kind of, how do I say? Basically, you would be able to put another quarterback in there that's similar to maybe a little bit below average, and he would be just fine. But he just doesn't, I think his time to be a franchise quarterback was a long time ago. I think when I think of a franchise quarterback, I think of a guy that could potentially be on the same team for 6, 7, 8 years, maybe even longer than that. So, maybe he could be the quarterback for now, but I feel like if he didn't have all these pieces around him, he wouldn't look as good, and 2, I think he would have a much different result to his season.
Yeah, that's true. moving on to Zeke's Overreaction Monday statement. He said Ravens are a sleeper Super Bowl contender in the AFC. I mean, I like this overreaction, but I mean, you could say that with almost any team in the AFC because I don't know who really is a front runner. So if there's no front runner, then any team could realistically be a sleeper team. But I mean, they're the 1 seed right now, so they're playing pretty good.
I just don't see the term sleeper as being a great word for the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens the last 6 weeks are in everybody's top 5 for power rankings, and like they're a team to be competitive with anybody in the AFC or anybody in the league. I do think they're a Super Bowl contender. I don't think it's an overreaction or a sleeper. So I'm gonna go on the other side of that. Just That's just how I feel. I just don't see that the sleeper is the correct word for them. I think they are legit Super Bowl contenders on that side.
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about the Ravens. I mean, I feel like on their best day they can be a Super Bowl contender team, but when you get into the playoffs and you face the best of the best, I don't think it's about what your best day is. I think it's about what your floor is, and their floor is just a lot lower than a lot of the other teams in the AFC. They're going to be making a push, so I think they possibly could. Would I bet on it? No. But yeah, I don't mind this take, but I kind of agree with Sean that I think if you're talking in the context of in general of like how people view the Ravens, I don't think it's a sleeper term isn't really a great way to put it. I would say maybe more of a dark horse.
Yeah. And the thing with the Ravens is like their 3 losses are the Steelers, the Colts, and the Browns. With the Browns without having their starting quarterback, and I think the Colts as well. So we look at the team like the Chiefs. Their top 3 losses because they've had 5: Eagles, Bills, and Lions. All those teams are very good playoff teams. You look at the Jaguars. They've lost to the Chiefs, they've lost to the Ravens, and they've also lost. I think to the Niners. So that's 3 really good playoff teams. So it's just like comparing them to the other teams in the AFC that are like leading their division, like the Dolphins. They've lost to the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bills. All those 3 teams have lost to 3 teams that are better than who the Ravens have lost to. Now the Ravens have also beaten 2 out of those 3 teams right now. So, but yeah, I don't mind the overreaction, but at the same time, I'm kind of with you guys on that.
Well, since we're, sitting here in the AFC East and we're talking about Super Bowl contenders, but I just say that the Bills might be the front runner to represent the AFC. I mean, as a Dolphins guy, and I said it last week, maybe it was the week before, I think Dolphins are kind of fraudy. But I just think that when it comes playoff time, if you let Josh Allen and that team get into this playoffs, they're going to show you that the regular season doesn't mean anything, and it all matters who gets hot late. And I think they're going to get hot late, and they're going to give you a show.
Pete?
I think they definitely have the talent to. And I was actually thinking about the Bills today a little bit, and from what I've seen like the last few weeks and kind of just taking in their whole schedule, their whole season in general, I think they're definitely on the upsurge. I think they've looked a lot better. They've looked a lot more consistent. They've shown that they can beat good teams, but they've also shown that they can lose against bad ones as well. And so it's just hard to say that they would potentially be a front runner. I think they're a little bit too far behind for that, but I think they can still be a team that you can't obviously sleep on, and you're going to have to watch out for and really game plan to make sure that you can stop that offense.
Yeah, and the biggest reason why I do sort of believe this Overreaction Monday statement is the fact that the Bills actually had a running game against the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys have one of the best pass defenses in the league. They have like 6 or 7 pick sixes. Even without Trayvon Diggs, they're still doing great. But at the same time, the Bills needed to figure out how to win. And you don't just put up, I think it was 33 points on the Cowboys, with ease. You had to have great drives. Josh Allen only threw for, I think, 94 yards against the Cowboys. And I think they ran for, as a team, almost 200, if not more.
He literally came out with a statement that says, I felt like the kid in school in a group project that did nothing and got an A. Because that's literally what happened. And if they're doing that without Josh Allen being on his, having a Josh Allen performance, that's just, waiting to wake up the beast and be scary.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, I like this one.
I got one more thing to say about this as well. I think that this actually, kind of how the game script went, what you guys were talking about with him not throwing a bunch of yards, not, having to do basically most of the offense. I think that may be actually what this team needs to succeed, because obviously we know he can throw for 353 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. We know he can do that. We've seen it time and time again. We know the kind of quarterback he is when he's on. But I don't think you need him to do all that for them to be as good as they can be, because as good as he can be, he can also hurt you in the same way. So I think this, kind of him taking a step back, being a little bit smarter and not being ultra aggressive, I think can actually turn this team around and be good for the future too as well.
Yeah. So Pete, your overreaction Monday?
Yeah. My overreaction, we're going to stay in the AFC. I guess this is an AFC overreaction besides Baker Mayfield. And that's Aaron Rodgers won't fix this offense. And this one, I don't feel super strongly about, but I do feel like it's a good take, because I feel like at Aaron Rodgers' age, in coming off this injury, obviously it had him out this whole season. That's another year of injury, and being away from the game of football for a year. I just don't feel like it's a great mix for a team that needs a quarterback to really come in and make a huge impact on the team. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to do a lot of what obviously the 3 or 4 quarterbacks this year have been able to do, which is 1, be consistent, 2, not turn the ball over, and 3, hit open guys. He'll be able to do all that. We know that. But I don't think that that's going to take this offense from one of the worst in the NFL to one of the best. I think it'll take them to probably around that 15 to 20 range, make them respectable. But that's not going to be enough to be a top 4 seed in the AFC, in my opinion. I think when you talk about the Dolphins, you talk about the Chiefs going to get better. The Bills, we just talked about, the Ravens are still going to be there. Obviously, the Bengals hopefully have a bounce back season. I think all those teams are younger. All those teams have debatably just as much talent on offense and a younger quarterback. So, it's just tough to think that he's going to come in here after being out for a year at, his super high age of what he's at and just completely turn around this offense. So, maybe fixing is a little bit of a, loose term, because he might be able to fix the offense, but he's not going to be the savior of the offense that they need to be a real contender.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can agree with parts of it. I think Rodgers, I think there's more to just the quarterback position, and it's also in the coaching aspect of why they're not getting to where they're at. I mean, you can look at other teams like I will always say this. You can look at Belichick and see that Belichick's been able to take players that aren't as good and still make them look good and be good, because he works around their strengths rather than forcing them to be theirs. I think that there's a mix of, they don't have a good quarterback group, and they probably don't have the best offensive play calling at the same time. I do think, Rodgers coming in, if he had a full season, even next year, I think is still able to wheel them to 10 wins and put them in a wild card position. But I don't know, like you said, if he's going to be able to get them over that hump and actually make a run for the playoffs. I know at the beginning of the year we thought the Jets were, without a doubt a Super Bowl contender or a playoff AFC East contender, but I think throughout the season the Jets offense has proved to us that it's more than just Aaron Rodgers as the fix. So I do agree with you in some cases there.
Yeah, they went out and got Dalvin Cook. They went out and traded for Allen Lazard. They added a lot of talent on offense. But where is this talent now? They traded McCole Hardman away. That was supposed to be like their number 3 receiver, and he's on a different team, back with the Chiefs. So what is this offense Like, here's the thing: is like even if Aaron Rodgers was playing in this offense, like, would Dalvin Cook even be like scary? Like when Dalvin Cook went there, I was like, dang, the Jets might actually take this division. Because PT, you had the Dolphins winning the AFC and being the 1 seed. I had the Bills, same, winning the AFC, or winning the East and being the 1 seed. So we were like, dang, this team could maybe dethrone them. But this offense is nowhere near that with subpar quarterback play. Like, is Aaron Rodgers, even though he was coming off of, a year removed, a back-to-back MVP seasons, was he going to be able to push this team into that 9 or 10 wins season that we were kind of like expecting them to have minimum? Right now, I just don't believe that. I mean, Alan Lazard's been almost non-existent. Garrett Wilson, like, he's the alpha, but at the same time, it's like he has really bad quarterbacks throwing him the ball. But in the run game, I just haven't been too keen on. But it's also hard to have a good run game when you're losing 80% of the time.
Yeah, true.
All right, so then that wraps up the Overreaction Monday statements. We'll move on to the Christmas wish list. I'll go first. The first team that I want to bring up, Chicago Bears. Their number one thing on their Christmas wish list is to make the right decision at quarterback. Now, obviously, they will most likely have the number 1 overall pick, thanks to the Carolina Panthers. They can go with Caleb Williams, or they could keep Justin Fields. Now, do they draft someone with that number 1 pick? They could maybe trade that. Really weird to trade the number 1 overall pick 2 consecutive years in a row. But if they could still get more picks, it might help them out. Justin Fields, like I've said all season, is being a scapegoat. He has been the reason they've been in a lot of games. He's been a reason they've won a couple games. So I really think that their number 1 thing is to make the right decision at quarterback, because the last thing they want to do is trade Justin Fields to the Falcons, and he's their Lord and Savior.
And that was music to my ears. I'll take Justin Fields. But I mean, I'm just gonna touch over that real briefly. I think it's a perfect wish list for them. I think what they should do is trade Justin Fields, get Caleb Williams or Drake May if they think he's better. I don't know, and then use that other pick to help out the young quarterback.
I think you both are preaching to the choir there. I don't like PT said and like you said. I don't see Justin Fields as a bad quarterback at all. I think he's good. I think he's just in a bad place, and everybody wants to throw the shade at him and say it's his fault when it's clearly not.
Yeah. Is it this top one, P?
It's the third one you're gonna save for last. So do 1, 2, and then 4 when it comes back to me.
All right.
All right, we're gonna have the Steelers first, and I think, man, this team is a blunder right now, and I think what they just need a really good draft class to come in here and kind of just get them back to being a respectable team. And I know what you're gonna say. They're respectable right now. They still have Mike Tomlin. They still figure out how to win games, and I just feel like they've had subpar enough teams, or I should say, a subpar enough performances where some things will go their way, but it's an ugly win. It's a lot like the Falcons, But the difference between the Falcons and them is I feel like this team is just lacking a lot of talent on offense. Najee Harris is not really that guy anymore. I'm not really convinced Deontay Johnson is a number 1 receiver. I think he'd be a pretty good number 2. And I'm not really convinced that Kenny Pickett's their guy, although I think they are going to give him another shot to be the starter in year 3. And we kind of talked about that a little bit off air, Sam, about kind of the quarterback conundrum with how you deal with young quarterbacks and whatnot. But I just feel like this team could use a whole lot, and there's not really one position that this team is going to be able to have or be able to get that's going to change their team around, and it's going to have to be the draft class, maybe a couple of free agents. But, I think the biggest thing with this team is they're going to have to see what Mike Tomlin is wanting to do and what they want to do with him as well.
Sean, your first team?
Oh, I don't know what it is, so just open it. We'll go from there. All right, 49ers. Well, 49ers, all they need and all they're asking for, they're not asking for much. They're just asking for a healthy Brock Purdy. That's all they want. They live and will die on the hill that if Brock doesn't go down last year, the Eagles aren't winning. and they're going and facing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And they will live and die on that hill till the end of time. And I think it's completely true. I mean, Brock's, I I think front runner, if not top 3 for NFL MVP this year. As long as Brock stays healthy, I think they are, looking to be kings of the NFC.
My next team is the Lions. And what they're asking for Christmas this year is their first playoff win since 1992. Now, I could have said make the conference championship, make it to the Super Bowl, but realistically, going into this year, they were like, let's take the division and maybe get a game, because they haven't won a playoff game in over, what is that, 31 years. None of us were alive. Like, it's crazy to think how long that has been. And they have played in, and I have it pulled it up right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 playoff games since then, and they have lost every single time.
8 straight L's is crazy.
That's it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure every other organization has had at least one playoff win since then. Even the Jaguars and Texans, who have been expansion teams since then, have had at least one playoff win in that time. All right, PT, your next one?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I have the Panthers. I think, when I was going through different teams of what I wanted to pick, I kind of wanted to get one that was going to be a little bit tricky for me, because what are the Panthers going to do? I think the Panthers have a really hard time asking for much, because they don't really have a lot of avenues to get better. I think a huge leap from Bryce Young would mean a lot, because one, that would tell you that, hey, we maybe we didn't mess up. I mean, obviously, as it looks right now, maybe they should have taken CJ Stroud. I don't know. The jury's still out on those guys. But as long as he performs well and looks like he's progressing towards a franchise quarterback, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, I don't think you can necessarily be mad at the pick at that point. So I think it would mean a lot, because you gave up so much to get him, and you're kind of in this hole. My second part is, I think you need to get a wide receiver for him, because with Adam Thielen at his age being the number one guy right now, it's just not really acceptable, because I think you're going to have to put a guy around him, preferably a bigger guy, that's going to be able to go up and get catches, have a good route tree, help Bryce Young out a lot. I think that would help a lot. I mean, and honestly, you could put almost everything for the Panthers. I mean, running backs, that would help. Offensive line, that would help. I mean, even a full-time head coach, not an intern, would help. But I think mainly you just want to see progression from Bryce Young, and then get him some help on the outside.
Like Christmas gifts to me. I don't know which one we're talking about next. The Rams. All right. I think the Rams are, I think they might be asking for a little much, especially when we look back at what we talked about at the beginning of the year. But I think they're just looking for a shot to extend their season, get into the playoffs, and make the most of what they have for this season. I remember early in the year, before the season started, we sat here just the same and talked about the Rams having no identity. They didn't know what their expectations were. We didn't know what to expect after last season, and I think the fact that they're sitting here at 7-7, and they have just as good of a shot to make the wild card spot as any of the other teams in the hunt. I think if they just find a way in and be able to extend their season and get a couple more reps in, and maybe upset the first round, I think that's a win, and it really gains them a lot of confidence and morale boost going into the off season, and realizing that, hey, that 2022 season wasn't our year, but we proved that in 23 we were able to scrap some stuff together, and we're on the cusp of being able to compete again.
My next team is the Baltimore Ravens, and what they're asking for this year is Lamar to finish the year strong and healthy. I heard something the other day before they played, not the Jaguars, but whoever they played before. Oh, it was the Rams. Lamar, in the last 2 years, in December, has started and finished only one game from December to the end of the year. I think that amounted to like 10 or 11 games. And he's only started and finished only one. So the last 2 years, he has not been able to end the year healthy. So if they could just finish this year strong, if he can finish this year strong and healthy, then they have a good chance to make a run in the playoffs because this man did win an MVP and they were a 1 seed in 2 consecutive years. Now this was like 3-4 years ago, but we've even I have to admit that they did have success, and I hate to admit it, but he just needs to stay healthy, and then they might be able to make some sort of run.
Yeah, definitely. This is probably my favorite one of the 4 that I have, and it's because we talked about it a little bit before, Sam. And I think Jaguars and Chiefs, these 2 teams, they need an alpha wide receiver. I think more so the Jaguars than the Chiefs, but I think for both these teams, it would open up so much their offense for their respective quarterbacks because both these quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes, are at their best when they have an alpha wide receiver, and I think obviously Mahomes still has Travis Kelce, and that's a big piece of their offense, but I think they were at their best when they had Tyreek Hill he was able to hit over the top, obviously. And then as far as the Jaguars, I mean, I just feel like they don't really have a wide receiver 1 right now. I feel like Calvin Ridley, great number 2, Christian Kirk, good number 3. They got Travis Etienne, great running back. Their offensive line is spotty, but it's not too bad. And their defense can come to play in any given Sunday. So really, they just need an alpha wide receiver that's going to be able to put up those 1,000-yard seasons. 10. I don't know about 10, but at least 6 to 7 touchdowns at least. And I think these are the kind of the wide receivers they're looking at. Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, the guys that are going to be available via trade, or at least they're going to be in talks. I don't know how available they would be. I think Mike Evans especially would be one of the more available guys because he's kind of getting up there in age, and all 3 of these guys have really good size, good speed, good touchdown ability, good yak ability, and I think that's the type of player that these teams need right now.
And like you said, I think this is probably one of my favorite ones here, except besides the Dolphins. If we get to them, the Browns, I think the Browns are sitting there, and every single one of those guys, besides Joe Flacco, the other 52 people that are on that team, and all the coaches, are all sending Christmas letters to Santa asking for 2013 Joe Flacco to make his return. I think it's crazy because it's been how long since Joe's played in an NFL game and truthfully kind of balled out. But you look at Joe, and Joe might be the answer. And if Joe can get to having the mindset, or realizing, hey, this might be my last chance, let's go all out and leave it all on the field, and Joe can find some of that Super Bowl MVP form, the Browns are gonna try to make a run and see what happens. But it's all gonna start on the back of Joe Flacco and being able to lead that team.
I'll start with kind of our core teams here. My Raiders, what they're asking for Christmas this year is the best head coach signing this offseason.
Brandon Staley?
No, no, definitely not. We don't really know who that could necessarily be right now. There could be a lot of good coordinators that come in. I know Bieniemy, Ben Johnson are 2 that have been talked about for the last few years that could be taking some spots. Like there could be some weird openings, like the Steelers lose their next 3 games. Mike Tomlin could maybe be on the table. I mean, hot take, but the Raiders, if they want to contend, because they have their alpha wide receiver. Yes, they could use some help at the quarterback position, but they're probably going to have a fairly high draft pick that they can use a rookie. Josh Jacobs, who was the best running back last year, still looking pretty good this year. They have their franchise player on the defense, Max Crosby, and their defense is actually playing more in the top half than the bottom half this year, which I thought I would never see. So I think if they just get the best head coach signing, then they could definitely be a playoff team next year.
So
Question
just
for you.
because you're talking, go ahead, PT.
No, you go ahead, Sean.
All right. So just because we're talking about head coach, and I just want to way off in the distance here, Would you take Jim Harbaugh if he goes to the NFL?
Yeah, I would.
That's all I need to know. No explanation. Just want to know yes or no.
Yep.
My question is, and it's a similar question. How would you feel about Dan Quinn?
He hasn't been a head coach since what, 19, 20?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
That
but
could be
that Cowboys
tough.
defense, though,
I
I
mean,
feel your struggle.
this year defense hasn't been our issue.
Yeah,
For the
true.
first time since maybe 01,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But P, yours?
Yeah, my team, and we're just looking for a top 3 quarterback in the 2024 draft, or a dependable vet quarterback. I would say because I'm gonna take this as kind of a biased perspective because I'm a Falcons fan, and I'm just explaining it from my terms. I think that my wants are very spotty, dependent on what quarterback we're talking about. So I would probably rank the quarterbacks as far as who I'd want out of these 6 that we're talking about here. I think I would go Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, and then no, actually I'd put Drake May over Geno, and then Tannehill last. I think I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels. I think if trading up to number 1, number 2, number 1, like we just talked about, the Bears, they would be willing to trade that pick. And depending on how these last few games go, they might not have to drop out of the top 10, and they might still have 2 top 10 picks. But I just am not crazy about giving up that much draft capital for a guy that we don't know. We just don't know. We saw how it turned out with the Panthers, not very well. But I think Jane Daniels would be in that range, about 6 to 10, that we realistically would only have to move up a few spots. And then Drake May, I think, is a good quarterback. I just don't know exactly. I think the team who knows that they want him are probably just going to take him around that 4 or 5, maybe 3 range. It's kind of a similar thing with Caleb Williams as far as draft capital, and I just don't think he's as good as Caleb Williams. So if I'm going to get my guy, I'd rather just get him. But or I guess if I'm giving up that much capital, I'd rather just get the guy. And then as far as the veterans, I like Kirk Cousins a lot for this offense. He's just, that you're only going to get a couple more years out of him, maybe 3. But anything past that, and it's kind of a long shot. Geno Smith, I like him as a quarterback, but he's kind of had a rough year, and he's on a big contract, and I don't really like that for a quarterback. That's another thing that's nice about having a rookie quarterback. You get that time, those 3 years where you can have him on that rookie deal and not really have to worry about spending money. And then Tannehill has just had a really rough year as well. He's probably on the back end of these veteran quarterbacks we talk about, but he has familiarity with Arthur Smith. Not saying I want to keep Arthur Smith, but he does have familiarity. So if he's going to stay, he might as well get his guy. And I don't think he would cost a lot because they know they're not going to start him anymore.
Yeah.
So
you're going to have. Go ahead, Sean.
No, go ahead. Mine's going on something else.
Okay. I was just going to say that you're going to have a tough time when you guys end up signing Josh Dobbs and he's your starter next year.
If he's cheap, I would not mind Josh Dobbs. The thing is I don't know if. Well, it depends. If we keep Arthur Smith, I can guarantee you he's not going to bank his head coach career on Josh Dobbs. But if it's a new coach, then and he believes in Josh Dobbs, and he's cheap, we just got to have some kind of backup option. So if we do that, we need to either make sure that the new head coach really likes Ritter's progression after this year, or we go maybe for a 2nd round quarterback, maybe Michael Penix, and try to develop him for a year or something like that.
Yeah.
So building upon that, I have one question before we go into my last one, because you brought up the Bears and their potential number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Would you trade away your current 10th pick for Justin Fields in a package?
In a package?
I don't know what the Falcons would have to give up. Because I don't know I don't know if the Bears look at the 1 pick and look at him, or look at the Falcons' current 10 pick in mock drafts and look at that and be like, we can get away with just taking the 10 and maybe somebody small, you know? And Justin Fields goes down, and now they have 1, 3, and 10,
That's
or whatever
crazy.
it is.
Yeah.
They have 3 top 10 picks
Yeah.
that they can look at trading and going and getting more crazy things. Like, yeah, you could go and get rid of Justin, get the 10 pick. You now have number 1, number 3, and number 10. And then you're like, well, we're going to go get Caleb Williams. Here's 2 and 3, or here's my 3rd and 10th pick. Who can we get receiver wise and just trade for? But regardless, let's just say you straight trade across 10th pick for Justin Fields. Are you fine with that?
So since we're on a tangent, we might as well just go down it,
Yeah.
I'm going to attack these in 2 separate parts. One from the Bears, one from the Falcons. For one, from the Falcons' perspective, I actually like it a lot. I think if you had those 3 picks in the top 10, there's so much you can do with that. You can trade one and get a pretty good receiver, and then still have those top 5 picks. And get Caleb Williams, and then get offensive tackle, or maybe a defensive player. So I really like it for them. I would like it a lot for them. As far as the Falcons' perspective, it depends. I think if the top 3 quarterbacks were off the board, I would probably do it, but then it ultimately depends on what else I have to give up, because I'm probably not going to trade Kyle Pitts. I'm not going to trade Drake London. I'm not going to trade Bijan. But if you're looking at a package like number 10, Tyler Algier,
The conditional Jaguars pick.
maybe like the second pick, or if they extend him, it's a second rounder. If not, it's a third. So we'll see. I guess if it's a second, then I'd probably do that, and maybe Jeff Okudah, and I'd call it good. And I think they would probably take that. But if you're talking about giving up like one of the 3 of our offensive players that we drafted in the top 10, I probably wouldn't do all that. But I don't think they would ask for all that, because they're getting a top 10 pick and they already have 2 other ones. So I don't think they'd ask for a whole lot,
Fair enough. Conversation to dive into later, but it popped up because you mentioned the Bears. It was a good one.
Yeah.
But we'll go into, my last Christmas wish list, and that is for the Miami Dolphins just to stay healthy. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to lie, as a Dolphins fan, that game against Tennessee when Tyreek Hill went down, my goodness, did that offense look lost. They had no identity. Last week they looked good. They found identity. They ran the ball great. They got Jalen Waddle great. But when I look at this injury report, the offensive line is very questionable with all the injuries. I mean, Armstead's been injured all year. Achan's been dealing with the toe all year. But there's so many top level players that are on the Dolphins that are hurt that if they can just get healthy, I feel like they can move out of the. I said fraud a couple weeks ago, and I think that was a very emotional reaction because of the game against the Titans. But I do think that they are missing a lot of key players, or that are constantly injured or banged up. I mean, I look at just the injury report for this weekend, and you have not necessarily they're all out, but Achan, Armstead, Tyreek, Xavier Howard, Austin Jackson, Mozart, Holland, Aku, like you just keep going, and it's all starters. And it's just like, can somebody go get the ice packs or massage therapy or suction cup therapy, whatever the hell it is? Somebody find a way to keep these players healthy and make a run in the postseason. But until somebody finds a way to keep these guys healthy, it's gonna be a struggle.
Yep. And the last one for the Christmas wish list, he's not here, but I'll say his teams for him. The Eagles, one more Super Bowl run. They have had probably the worst stretch that they have had since maybe, I think, 2020. And that was like three really bad losses in a row. You get blown out to the Niners, but you know what? That's the best team in the NFC. Don't worry, we got the Cowboys. division rival. You win this, then you're almost guaranteed winning the division. You lose, and you lose bad. And then you have the Seahawks where you're winning with like a minute and a half left, and you give up a 92-yard drive to Drew Lock. So that is 3 really bad losses in a row. So what they're asking for is just to make it back to the Super Bowl, because all you got to do is get there, and anything can happen any given Sunday. You just got to get there.
Telling you, man, that regression's in, just like I said.
All right. We get it. You're just an Eagles hater. So that wraps up our Christmas wish list. We're going to go into our upsets, double downs, and picks. Starting off with the upsets, Zeke and I actually have the exact same one, and we're going the Raiders over the Chiefs. Now, him and I are the only ones going here. You two are both going with the Chiefs. You know, the Chiefs have just not been looking all too good lately, and, you know, putting up 63 points after getting shut out gives me faith that maybe, just maybe, the Raiders could give me a little Christmas Day miracle and we beat the Chiefs. Now, why would we want to do that when we could be tanking for a better draft position? Because F the Chiefs, I guess.
Just know, Dolphins did put up 70 and then got throttled the next week to the Bills. So, if history repeats itself, you might want to just have the tissues next to you right now.
Oh, don't worry, I will. It's a Raiders game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say about it. I just think that the Chiefs are just a slightly better. I mean, not slightly. I think they are a better team overall. They just have more consistency and just a bigger winning pedigree right now, and they're at home. But I just want to add real quick. I kind of forgot to mention this when we talked about the Raiders before. Who is your interim head coach's name? What's his name again?
Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, I think he's actually going to get a chance to be the head coach next year, because the difference I saw from McDaniels to him, you could just tell that these guys want to play for him a lot more. It's not even close. And the defense is coming to play every game. And I like what I'm seeing from the Raiders. Even though they know that the season is kind of lost, they're playing hard every game, and they want to give their head coach, their interim head coach, a chance at the full gig.
Yeah, and once the Super Bowl ends, we'll talk about coaches going to certain teams. But I think right now, I don't know who the third would be in the top 3, but right now on my wish list would be Jim Harbaugh, Antonio Pierce, and then maybe someone else. I'd have to dive into it later, but like those are probably my top 3 candidates that I would want to be the Raiders head coach next year. Sean, your upset of the week?
I don't remember. I told you I didn't know what it was, so you picked one. All right, the Cardinals over the Bears. I don't. That's an upset.
Yeah, the Bears have 5 wins.
Do they?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm taking the Cardinals. I like the Cardinals. I don't know.
Kyler's back.
I don't have much to say. I'm riding the Cardinals. They've had some good moments this year. They've had some games that have been closer and some games that they probably shouldn't have been in, and I'm gonna ride with them. I think the Bears are still gonna be trying to maintain, their draft position. So I'm gonna rock with the Cardinals this week.
I think the Cardinals are trying to be on tank mode. They want to give themselves the best chance to be the highest they can, and it's not out of the question that the Cardinals can be number 1, right? Because what are they at? 4 wins?
I think so. I can look real fast.
I think so too. Maybe 3, but they're not at 5. They're not at 5. I can tell you that right now. They might be at 4 because they beat the
Cardinals.
Falcons.
Are 3-11.
3-11, yeah.
The Panthers are 2-12.
Right. So they still have a chance to be number 1 overall, and that doesn't mean they have to pick there necessarily. But even if they were there, they could still get Caleb Williams and then trade Kyler and be in the same predicament that the Bears are in. So, I think it's tank season for them. They don't want to win this game.
Yeah. So is this a game where we're just going to try to see both teams try to lose the game? So
No, because I don't think the Bears need to lose.
Yeah. I think it's going to be high scoring because neither team wants to care. I think it's going to be like 28-31 type stuff because neither one of them want to push for anything. Yeah. I get what you're saying, PT, of how they want to push for it. I don't see Carolina finding a way to do any worse than or do any better than they are. And the only other team that's really in that conversation is the Patriots. And looking at the Patriots, where to go? Remaining schedule.
They play the Broncos this week.
They play the Broncos this week, and then they play the Bills and the Jets. I truthfully think that their best shot is against the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at it as I think that the Cardinals kind of realize that they're probably getting the third or fourth pick this year in the draft. So I think it's the guys are still going to play, and they're just going to make sure that they only get 1, maybe 2 wins to finish the season. But I think they're still going to fight hard, and I think the Bears are going to try to capitalize as much as they can still.
Yeah. And,
Fair enough.
I've been saying all season, why are the Cardinals even trying? Like, they've won, out of their 3 games that they've won, 2 of them have been pointless. Like, there's no need for you to win some of those games. They could easily have the number 1 overall pick right now. But they have been a team that has been trying all season when they really shouldn't be. So I feel like it'd be too little too late if they started tanking now. But so I'm going with the Bears just because I think that the Bears, I don't think they care about tanking because they know that they got either the number 1 or number 2 pick realistically. And I don't think that they really care about where their pick is at the moment because they know they're already going to get the number 1 overall pick. So they're just trying to figure out who can be guys that we could rely on next year. I think they're kind of doing preseason work for next year, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Doing
why
an identity test.
Yeah, or a culture fit test.
Mm-hmm.
Getting Chase Claypool out of there. He didn't fit the identity that they wanted or the culture. You're gone. So yeah, I'm going with the Bears, and Zeke's he's going with the Cardinals along with Sean. So, PT, you're upset for the week?
Yeah. My upset's going to be the Buccaneers over the Jaguars. I think, I don't think that, and, don't quote me on this because I don't know for sure or not, but I don't think that the Buccaneers are favorites. I think the Jaguars are favorites probably by 3 or so. But I just feel like the Buccaneers have been on a really good stretch. They know now that as long as they keep winning games, they have a firm hold on the NFC South, but they know that if they would lose this game and then another game after that it could be a really, really steep decline. So they're going to have to keep winning games, and the Jaguars are just so on and off, especially with Trevor Lawrence dealing with injuries, and I believe he picked up another injury this week. So not only that, but they're also at home, and so I think that they're going to win this game and keep their momentum.
Yeah, so I went with the Jaguars just because I feel like they have the fire under their butt a little bit more. They are in a 3-way tie right now for their division, where the Buccaneers are in a 2-way tie. But with how close the AFC is, the Jaguars need to win this game so that they can try to take that division and for sure get a spot in the playoffs. The Buccaneers, you could say the same thing with the exception of if they lose this game and the Saints win this week. The Saints will be the front runner, but who does the Buccaneers play next week? The Saints. And if they win against the Saints next year and they have the same record again, they have the 2-0 head-to-head on the season. So they're back in first place, and then all they got to do is beat the Panthers week 18, and then they win the division again. So this game is not a necessity for the Buccaneers, whereas this is more of a necessity for the Jaguars. Anything to say on the Jaguars game? Sean? Duval.
Yeah, there we go.
And then Zeke's also going with the Jaguars here, so Payton's the only one going there. So now on to the double downs. I'm doubling down on the Bengals over the Steelers. Steelers just announced a few days ago, I believe, that Mason Rudolph is going to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers. And the Bengals are on a hot streak right now, I think winning their last 3 games. Jake Browning been playing very good, with the exception of the first game against the Steelers. He's been playing his part, and I expect them to get a good win here and put the Steelers in panic mode.
Yeah, Steelers are a mess right now, and then on the flip side, the Bengals still have life without Joe Burrow, so they should get the win.
I think the Bengals are and just save as much of the season as they can. They got nothing to lose. I think that they've realized that they're not the Super Bowl contender this year, but they're not going to go down without a fight.
Yep. Go ahead and move into spoiler mode. And we all agree with the Bengals there. Zeke's double down is the Dolphins over the Cowboys. We have a 2-2 split here. And Zeke and I are both going with the Dolphins, while you two are going with the Cowboys. Mostly Zeke and I just believe that the Cowboys have been. The Bills last week showed how you can beat the Cowboys, and that is to just run the ball and then use the passing game when you need it. I think, yeah, like I said, Josh Allen only had 94 passing yards last week. This Dolphins team can throw the ball, but if Tyreek's out, you're going to have to run with Mostert in the chain if they're healthy. Sean alluded to earlier that they're both on the injury report as of this moment. But, yeah, I think Cowboys might just might have had the blueprint on how to beat them exposed since they've been on such a tear lately.
Yeah, I only went Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to be on revenge mode after last week. They kind of got put in their place and got acted like their little brother last week. I think that they are still fighting for that, number one spot. I guess they are fighting for the number one spot, but I think that they want to finish better than the Eagles. They're going to keep fighting for that. And just the injury side of the Dolphins just scares me. They've also struggled against any of the higher, top tier teams this season. So it worries me, and I think the Dolphins might be falling into a looking too far ahead type thing. They have the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills, so they have 3 tough games to finish off the season, and they have to win. One of those 3. If they beat the Bills and they lose the other 2, they clinch the AFC East. So I think it's one of those things that they control their destiny, and then they're like, as long as we beat this team, we're fine.
I just think it comes down to injuries. And I do like that you said that they're going to have a bounce back week, because I think the Cowboys have games like that where they'll have a pretty bad game one week and the next game they'll show again why they're, still in that contending mode of talent. And I just think without Tyreek Hill, it's going to be really hard to hope that Jalen Waddle has another good game in a row, because he's been so inconsistent this year. So, yeah, I think the Cowboys just have the health, have the bounce back ability, and on the opposite side, the Dolphins, their back is kind of against the wall and they don't have their best player.
Sean, your double down?
My double down is the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen over the. I don't even know who the interim coach is in Los Angeles, but that offense looks atrocious. I don't know what to expect with anything out there besides the Bills absolutely throttling them and coming away with a W, and making the AFC East and the AFC picture as a whole even tighter and crazier to think about who's actually going to be in the playoffs.
I think the Chargers are probably the worst team in the NFL right now, behind the Panthers and Patriots, honestly, which they really shouldn't be, but I really do think they are. You lay a complete goose egg last week, and I just don't see that getting much better facing a Bills team that's coming off a good win.
Yeah, I don't think I need to add anything else. We're all going with the Bills there. And then Peyton, the last double down.
Yeah, mine's gonna be Eagles over Giants. With how bad they've been, or I don't think they've necessarily been bad, but as far as winning and losing games on this losing streak that they're on now, this needs to be a game where they kind of recalibrate, kind of reset a little bit. Make Tommy DeVito's life really bad during this game. Get back to that Eagles defense that they've been known for, and kind of recalibrate their whole team as a whole. I just don't think the Giants are going to be able to do much to stop the Eagles' offense.
Yeah, it's really hard to lose 4 games in a row when you have the amount of talent that the Eagles have. So I'm going with the Eagles, and I feel like this is the bounce back game that the Eagles need, because they can still win the division. I mean, if the Cowboys lose here and the Eagles win, Eagles are back on top of the division. So,
And if you look at the Eagles, I think the Eagles are looking at it as they have by far probably the easiest 3-game stretch remaining. Granted, they're playing the Giants twice, and you never know what's inter-division games, but they have the Giants, Arizona, and the Giants. That's their remaining schedule. They still have a chance to make it as the number 1 seed in the NFC, depending on what, the 49ers do. But I think the Eagles are full in. They're trying to do what their wish list was of making another Super Bowl run. And I think they're going to be coming out, all hands on deck to finish off the regular season strong and to make up for the last 3 weeks.
So then that wraps up our upsets and double downs. We'll just go into our picks, starting with the Saints and Rams. Only one of us disagrees here. Sean, you're going with the Rams while all of us are going with the Saints. Go ahead and tell us why.
The Rams really want to make playoffs, and I need to catch up in standing. So it's ride the high horse, and if I fall off, I guess I fall off, but I ain't going down without a fight.
All right, that's fair. PT, why the Saints?
I just feel like it's a really 50-50 game. Both teams need to win the game. I just feel like the Saints need it a little bit more because obviously the Buccaneers have a pretty easy schedule, and then they face the Buccaneers next week. So if they lose this game, they're pretty much out. So I feel like they definitely need to win this game.
Yeah, I agree with that logic too. So that's why I picked the Saints. Next, Colts Falcons. Only one disagrees here. Zeke's going with the Falcons. All of us are going with the Colts. I don't think I could pick the Falcons because normally I would have picked the Falcons here. But with how bad they played last week against Carolina, I don't think that I could even. I mean, this took me a second to decide because they lost to the Panthers. So I'm going with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons won, but like you said, you just can't realistically pick them based on how the year's been going. I think they always, it's like they want it to happen, but they always tend to get themselves in a position in the fourth quarter where they have to make the game-winning plays to win the game, whether that's a field goal, whether that's a crucial fourth down conversion, whether it's a crucial stop. And they're really just not very good at it, and I think that's mainly a coaching thing and an execution thing from the quarterback position. But and there's just the team is very young in general too. But yeah, it's just with the Colts being on a pretty good trajectory to finish the year strong, getting Jonathan Taylor back, Zach Moss, that run game, Gardner Minshew's been pretty solid, and I don't think obviously Michael Pittman's probably not going to play, but I don't think that's really going to matter much. I think the Colts will take care of business.
So I thought the same thing. Michael Pittman practiced today and is only listed as questionable. Full practice today. Going off of that, I think the Colts from top to bottom are a more complete team than the Falcons, and are riding hot even with Minshew as quarterback. He's done a great job at stepping in for Anthony Richardson, but I think especially if Michael Pittman comes in and can play, even if it's in limited reps and can only play half the time, but I think his presence does kind of similar to what Tyreek does in Miami, where you put their top target out there, and then now you have JT. I think that's almost going to be too much for the Falcons to be able to handle and stop the Colts from, being able to score.
Seahawks Titans. We all went with the Seahawks here. PT, you can go ahead and start with this one.
Yeah, I just feel like the Seahawks are a little bit more of a veteran team, especially when you talk about the quarterback position and the wide receiver position in general. I think the defense and the running back position you could obviously debate, but I just feel like Will Levis needs the end of this year and kind of needs an off season to kind of refresh and really get some more help around him. But the Seahawks, I still think game to game, I think it has a lot to do with Pete Carroll, but they're just a really solid team that I think can win a lot of games. But or I should say they can win any game that they play in. And I think they're that type of team, and I think they're just going to have an easy win against the Titans here.
And I think the Seahawks, they're in that position where they can still make the playoffs. They're still fighting for that last wild card spot. They're 7-7, right there with the Rams. Can still make it. They have a fairly easy schedule to end the season. I mean, they go Titans, Steelers, Cardinals. So I mean, they still have a chance to finish 10-7 and make playoffs. So I think they're fully invested in this. Fighting as much as they can. Every game matters to them. And I don't think they're going to take it down off that. And I just don't think the Titans are very good. And I want to see everybody beat them because somehow they beat the Dolphins.
Yeah. I just going with the Seahawks just because they're right in the hot hand. They just beat the Eagles, and like Sean just said, they have an easy stretch here. So all they got to do is just keep it rolling, and then they're going to make the playoffs. So, speaking about making the playoffs, the team can clinch their ticket to the playoffs here with the Lions and Vikings. If the Lions win this game, I talked about if on the Christmas wish list is winning their first playoff game since '92. If the Lions win this game, they win the division for the first time since 1994, only 2 years after they had their last playoff win. So this game means a lot for the Lions. Yes, they have 2 other games after, including another game against the Vikings to clinch that division. But you do it here, you know that you're going to be you'd be guaranteed a top 3 seed because you're going to be higher than the NFC South division winner. So I think the Lions just want to just take care of business, get it done, and then they win the division for the first time in 29 years.
You said the last time they won was 1994.
I believe so. That's the last
And
time they had a home playoff game.
Okay, and the last time they won a playoff game was 92?
Yep.
Damn. Barry Sanders wasted. Man.
Yeah, that's tough.
But-
and Calvin Johnson.
Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Well, he got a ring eventually, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But
But
Yeah,
I
not
agree
there.
with you. I think the Lions are, they're gonna be hungry for this game. They finished with the Vikings twice in 3 weeks. It's Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. So I think it's one of those things that you don't want to rely on the last game of the season or having to give the hand to the Vikings. So if they lose this game, they have to beat the Cowboys or hope that the Vikings lose to be able to maintain that division lead. I don't think that the Lions want to see it come down to week 18 and having to beat the Vikings in order to secure that playoff spot or just the division in general.
yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I don't think I have too much more to add on to that. They're just going to take care of business and get it done.
Yep. Next, the Commanders and Jets, that horrible offense versus that horrible defense. We're all going with the Commanders here. Sean, was this a hard choice?
No, the easiest part about this is determining this might be the worst football game we watch all season. This is the 32nd ranked defense versus the 32nd ranked offense. I truthfully don't know what to expect, but a lot of blown plays either on offense or defense or just some FCS style football.
Yeah, both these teams are pretty bad, but I think the Jets are really bad. And so I'm just giving the nod to the Commanders because they've at least shown signs of positivity, and I haven't seen really much of that since week 1 from the Jets.
Yeah. And Peyton, I'll tell you right now, that is not going to be one of the 4 games that we're going to be watching on Sunday.
Well, no, I think it could be one of those games that's so bad that it could be good.
That we just want to turn it on.
Yeah, like it could be a 3-3 with a minute left and go into overtime.
Maybe we just go buy some of those Iowa. I came for the punts
Right,
shirts
yeah.
and just wear that during the
I
games.
came for the 3 and outs.
Yep.
So, a side question here, just because it's this game. Jets 32nd ranked offense, Commanders 32nd ranked defense. It can't get any more even for how bad the opposites are. Does this play favor into the 32nd ranked offense or the 32nd ranked defense in that matchup?
I think honestly it's better for the Commanders because I feel like you can work on defense with a lot less than what's required with on offense. Like I think that you can have a random good secondary game or random good linebacker or even a good pass rush game, but you're not getting a good quarterback game
Right.
from the Jets. It's just not going to happen.
And that's how I looked at it too, and that's why I went with the Commanders. Was simply the defense isn't going to have to force turnovers or have to force hard passes. It's already going to happen on its own. The offense is going to basically be the defense's right hand man and help them out in this situation throughout the entire game.
Yeah, that was a lot of conversation for two teams that was already eliminated from playoff contention.
Best game of the week right there.
Yeah.
Best worst game of the week.
Yeah, I still will probably not turn that game on. The next one, Packers-Panthers. We're all going with the Packers here. PT, you didn't want to give the Panthers 2 in a row?
Nah, I mean, this isn't the type of team that's going to be able to win 2 in a row. And I think the Packers have shown that they can win games. I mean, they've looked better than they've looked probably all season. At least the first 4 games were pretty rough for them. And I feel like the last few games have been okay. Even though they lost to the Buccaneers last week, it looked like they had some signs of offense. And I believe they won the week before that. So I would say, as if I were to power rank these teams, Panthers are probably 32, and the Packers are something like 23 or 24. So I think that they just have a much more competent team and head coach.
Sean?
I'd rather talk about the Commanders in this game so we can move on to the next one.
Jesus.
That's fair.
Yeah. I don't expect the Panthers to get 2 in a row. They'll be trying. They don't have their first overall pick or the first round pick. So might as well.
Either way, first overall or first round pick.
Yeah, regardless.
It's first overall, but they don't have it.
Yep. So the Browns-Texans. Zeke's going with the Browns. Well, all three of us are going with the Texans. I went with this. Does anyone know CJ Stroud's availability? I know he was out last game.
I'll look it up real quick.
I want to say he's not going to play. And I would say that's probably the smart decision on their part because you'll take a good season, they
don't need to make the playoffs this year.
No, they already surpassed expectations for what this team was going to be. So I would say it's probably smart that he doesn't play.
Stroud did not practice and is still listed as questionable, which would leave me to believe he's probably not going to play this week.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, like you said, I don't think that it's worth it. I mean, he's already proved exactly like you said that he's going to take this team somewhere in the future. If I still had fantasy, I'd be a little upset because Nico Collins would need to go up, but I lost first round in all three of my leagues, so it doesn't matter.
I just even with this, it's smart for them not to play because here's the thing is he's coming back from, I think, concussion protocol, and the last thing you want to do is have him come back and face Myles Garrett. So
exactly.
Our second to last game here is the Patriots Broncos on a Sunday night game. Another game I will probably not be tuning into. We all picked the Broncos here. They're right in the hot hand, and with the loss to the Lions last week, they have a 26% chance of making the playoffs. This is a must win. If you lose this, then your season might as well be done.
Broncos and I don't think the Patriots have any wants to win the game. I think they're sitting there and just can we draft Drake May yet?
Yeah, right. I mean, I really don't even think that Belichick really cares about this game either because I feel like he's going to be done regardless of what happens next year or what happens in the next 3 games. So the team kind of just wants to get the season done with, honestly.
Yeah. And the game that I'm probably most looking forward to here is the Monday night game on Christmas Day between the Ravens and the 49ers. All three of us going with the 49ers. Zeke's going with the Ravens. Now, how difficult was this choice for you guys? Because this could be a potential Super Bowl matchup.
I didn't really see this as being too difficult.
Yeah.
I kind of what PT said earlier that the Ravens can be up and down. I think the 49ers have been consistent all season, and so you kind of ride the consistency train with it. I just think that there's so much more talent on both sides of the ball in San Francisco than there is in Baltimore, that unless the Ravens have you know, crazy performance out of Lamar or somebody steps up, I don't think that their talent's going to get them over the edge over the Niners.
Completely agree with everything you said, and in addition to that, I just feel like they're a much more complete team as well.
Yeah, the Ravens, the key to the Ravens winning here is you can't let the 49ers score 3 touchdowns. You gotta keep them under 20 points. Otherwise, because like I don't see the Ravens winning a shootout here. Like they won 37-31 to the Rams. That not against this 49ers team, not a team that has an MVP candidate, quarterback and running back right now. So
2
I went with
MVP
the
candidates
Niners,
at that.
but right.
I think the only thing that the Ravens have going for them is, I don't remember what it is, but the underdog team this season on Monday Night Football has a winning record.
There we
That's
go.
interesting.
So, and they're 5-point underdogs going into Monday as of today.
So there we go. That's our upsets, double downs, and picks. Just one last look at the standings. I'm at 172 points. Zeke's at 169. Sean's at 167. Payton 160. It's coming down to the wire. We got 3 more regular season weeks, and then 3 rounds of playoffs, and then we're at the Super Bowl. So there's still a lot of stuff can happen, but we're still waiting for that first 16-0 week. We got 3 weeks left. All I'm going to say is I was getting real happy when I saw all these greens. And then I was just like, oh, Falcons got this. And I look at the score and it was 6-6 and the Panthers had the ball. So, Payton, I would just like to thank you and your Falcons for ruining my Sunday.
Ritter. You can thank Desmond Ritter.
No, I'll thank you, buddy.
Is my 14-2 the best on the season in week 12 when it was only the Thursday night and the Monday night game that lost me?
Yeah,
I should have taken a parlay on that one.
Yeah,
should have taken a Sunday parlay.
Oh yeah, dude. If you did that, like, I guess it would have been a shorter one because that was also Thanksgiving and Black Fridays. But yeah, if you did only Sunday games, dude, you would have been taking us all to Texas Roadhouse.
I would have taken $5 and turned it into something. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
But is there anything you guys need to add?
No, not really.
All right.
Not really.
But once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. I've been Sam Holcroft.
I've been Payton Thompson.
This is Sean Rink.
Thanks for listening.
You're welcome.